What was the Ancien Régime before the French Revolution? Have you ever wondered what life was like in France before the French Revolution? The Ancien Régime was the political and social system that ruled France for centuries. It began around the 15th century and lasted until the late 18th century. This system was marked by a strict hierarchy and a monarchy that claimed absolute power. However, this power was often limited by various social and institutional factors. At the top of this structure was the king, who ruled by divine right. This meant that his authority was believed to come directly from God. The king stood above all social classes, which were divided into three main groups known as the three estates. The first estate was the clergy. They held significant religious and political influence and were exempt from many taxes. The second estate was the nobility. They owned land, enjoyed privileges, and were also largely exempt from taxation. The third estate was the commoners, which included peasants, merchants, lawyers, and urban workers. This group made up about 97% of the population. They faced heavy taxation and had the least political power. This social order was deeply unequal. The clergy and nobility enjoyed many feudal privileges, while the third estate bore the burden of taxation. Politically, the Ancien Régime featured an absolutist monarchy. While the king had centralized authority in theory, governance was often fragmented. France was divided into various provinces, each with its own local privileges and autonomy. Administrative, judicial, and ecclesiastical jurisdictions often overlapped, creating confusion. Institutions like the Estates General existed as a representative assembly of the three estates, but they were rarely convened and had little influence. The monarchy relied on appointed officials to manage the administration rather than elected representatives. Courts known as parliaments had the power to register royal edicts. Sometimes, they acted as obstacles to royal authority by refusing to register unpopular laws. The Ancien Régime was the result of centuries of state building, legislative acts, and internal conflicts, including civil and religious wars. Despite the efforts of monarchs like Henry IV, Louis XIII, and Louis XIV to centralize power, the Ancien Régime remained a patchwork of local privileges and entrenched social inequalities. This system came to an end with the French Revolution. The revolution dismantled feudal privileges, abolished the estate system, and established principles of equality and citizenship. The storming of the Bastille in 1789 symbolized the uprising against this old order. This event led to radical political and social changes that shaped modern France and influenced revolutions around the world. Understanding the Ancien Régime is essential for grasping the historical turning point represented by the French Revolution. This revolution transformed not only France but also the broader world by challenging monarchy and privilege that had been entrenched for centuries.